Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Harpreet Gill, and welcome back to my channel, Money Talks. Today's topic is such a vital topic that a lot of people do not think about: will planning. And I have a special guest, Shailene Kim, who is going to be here to dissect this topic. I remember when I first got involved into financial planning, I had no idea how crucial it is to think about death, because death brings poverty or it can bring wealth. A lot of people don't realize that we're actually worth more dead than we are alive. And it's so important for us to start to dissect the intricacies of what that really means, because we're slowly starting to talk about a topic that we never talked about before, which is generational wealth. And generational wealth has a lot more to do with what you do in your planning process when you pass away. Because the unfortunate fact is that when a wealthy person passes away, the family becomes wealthier. But when it comes to people who are stuck in poverty, when a poor person passes away, we become more poor. And it's so important for us to start to understand what it means to plan for the next generation. And will planning is so key to what we're going to be talking about today. And we have a special guest, like I said, Shailene Kim from Everest, who's going to help me dissect this topic and go really deep down into the nitty-gritties of all of this stuff. But before we get there, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get my latest information on your next financial literacy topic, so we can continue dissecting and decoding all things finances. Welcome to the Money Talks Decoding Finance YouTube channel, where it's all about destigmatizing the conversation around money and building wealth. Allow me to bring you Money Talks every Sundays. Shailene, thank you so much for being here with me today. We're going to talk about such an important topic about will planning. I know that there's so many people who really have no idea what this means and what the purpose of planning your will is. And I'm so glad to have an expert like you to come and share your insight and knowledge with us. But before we get started, I would love for you to tell the audience a little bit more about yourself. Who is Shailene?
Oh my God, good question. I have been in the insurance industry, I guess, for about 8 years now. It's kind of strange because when we grow up, we never say, I want to be an insurance broker or I want to get into this industry. So in terms of career-wise, I went to George Brown College for chef training.
Oh,
and
wow.
Then somehow the journey just kind of changed, and then I got into insurance, but starting from a contact center, answering phone calls, and then slowly kind of working the way up. And then, I found Everest, which is the company I work for, and I loved it ever since, and I keep going.
Yeah. Yes, and it's so crazy. I'm so glad that you mentioned that you came from the culinary background, because even our last guest that we had on our episode, he was in music. That's what he got his degree in,
cool.
And went complete into the different direction. And same thing with myself. I started off as a social worker and ended up in the financial services sector. Never in a million years did I think that this is where it ended up, but it's important for people to know that life is not so linear, and it can have all kinds of unexpected turns for the better sometimes, right?
Yeah, it's just I think it's about the people. Whatever you're doing, it's what we all have in common,
right?
And I think really it's helping people and just feeling really good about doing it. So,
yeah, absolutely. So one of the questions that I want to ask you, because this is something that I was very ignorant and naive to before getting into the sector, and it's really about will planning. All I ever knew about will planning was from what I seen on television. Usually, wealthy people have it. If you don't have wealth, what's the point of a will? But I want you to kind of elaborate a little bit about what is the importance of a will, and should everyone have one?
Yeah, I think the misconception is that, if I don't have a house, I don't have a lot of money, I don't need that will, because what's the point? And, I've talked to a lot of lawyers, estate planners over, a couple years now. And it doesn't matter if you don't have those things, because now we live in Canada.
Right.
And there are laws and rules against things like this. So if you are in a relationship, if you're separated, divorced, married, whatever it is, you want to kind of be in control of, who gets what if you do pass away. If you have children under the age of 18, little things like that, people don't really realize. Mm-hmm. It can take a really big toll on the family if there is no will and something unexpected, does happen. it's really detrimental to the entire family.
Yeah. And, especially you being in this industry and having firsthand experience, I think it's so important to kind of touch on, like, even when we think that we don't have assets, when people bicker about small things, just like, I don't know, the family, I don't know, heirloom that might be floating around. Who gets that, right? And sometimes it's not just about assets in terms of like properties or, just cash or anything of that sort. But there's other areas that create lots of, I guess, bad energy in a sense within the family when somebody passes away and they want to have certain things transferred to them.
Yeah, it's small things. In my family, there was an issue where it was our grandmother's golden necklace, right? And that wasn't in the will. Who got that? It was like a really big part of our family, and we had, people kind of arguing who's gonna take this, right? Little things like that make a really big difference, and it can just cause a lot of dispute, which you kind of just don't want to deal with.
Yeah. Have you? Do you have any examples of a story where things have gone left? Not obviously not personally your own, but anyone where when somebody passes away and there is no will put into place, what happens in cases where the families don't see eye to eye on certain areas?
Yeah, like I've heard so many stories, like you don't understand, it's pretty crazy. One of them I think is an estate planner that I kind of, been talking with for a while, and his mother did not have a will in place, and just to kind of get all of the assets together, like what she had, what she owned, even like little trinkets in the house, they had to put a value on it. But that took so long because they had no idea where everything was. So it took like almost a year to kind of gather that information. And then sometimes what happens is that the family says, hey, why is this taking so long? There's like all of this stress and pressure from, the son in this picture. But, sometimes they are kind of held personally liable as well for making wrong decisions, so they say. So some pretty crazy stories, a lot of relationships broken because of this.
No, for sure. Fortunately, I'm pretty new in this industry. I've only been in it for 2 years, and I haven't experienced any of my clients passing away as of yet. So I haven't experienced that part of my journey in my career where I've seen disputes. So it's always nice to see or hear stories from somebody who has experienced that, because a lot of times we don't think about these things, right? We don't think about.
We don't want to.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And this is not a topic that we're going to talk about today, which is insurance. But a lot of times people also mistake a will kind of like an insurance policy as well, right? Yeah. I remember when I first got involved in this industry, and I kind of felt uneasy all of a sudden when I realized I didn't have any life insurance. And I started thinking about my father, and I was like, I wonder if he has life insurance. Yeah. And I went to speak to him, and he's like, I'm good. I have a will in place. And
that's what my mom said. She said the same thing, and it was just like, no.
It's not the same thing.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not. They, I think in like an immigrant background, like I'm from a Korean background.
Right.
And my family immigrated to Canada like 35 years ago. And as they continued to build their legacy, they thought, okay, well, if I just have a will, it means I'm good.
Right.
It's perfectly fine. Everything's good to go. But that's really not the case. There's so much that families just kind of need to learn about and have that education. And having the will is one tool for estate management, right? It's going to help you kind of distribute that estate, but it's not the end all be all. You still need like money, right? You need money to take care of the process for all of that. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned estate planning, and I always tell people that, unfortunate reality is that we're worth more dead than we are alive, right?
Oh my gosh, I know.
Either our family's going to inherit our debt, or they'll inherit our wealth. But, one thing that people don't realize is that when somebody passes away, your entire estate gets frozen. And essentially what an estate is everything that you own. And it doesn't have to be just property or, other forms of investments. It can be like jewelry, a vase, whatever the case may be. Your car, vehicle, right? And so people don't think about these things. And it's so important that we start highlighting conversations around this, because so many of us get educated from people who are not in the industry, who are not professionals. It's really about, oh, I heard this person say this and I've heard this person say that. And we kind of conclude our own ideas from whatever we hear from other people who are not even educated themselves. And then we find out years later that, oh shoot, what I've been planning for is nothing close to what needs to be done.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's the one example you said is there's so many things that are unexpected, like we can inherit debt or wealth.
Right.
When someone passes away in Canada, there's always a tax that's
Mm-hmm.
paid. I didn't know that at one point. Families don't know that, right?
No.
And so they have this surprise tax bill with accounting fees and lawyers that get involved too. And it's just like, where did that come from?
Right.
You know?
Right. And it's so stressful thinking about it when we have our own stuff to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
But then imagine having to deal with somebody else's stuff, whoever passes away in your family, and thinking about, oh, how am I going to close down these accounts, or how am I going to tap into whatever I need to tap into, do the right process. And when we don't have that knowledge, it's like we're scrambling at the end of the day, trying to figure things out last minute.
Yeah. I never want to put like any of my family members in that position. And it's just very crucial that we just have the right information and just share it, you know?
Mm-hmm. So what happens in a state when somebody dies without a will and there are things to their name? I know we kind of briefly touched on that, but I wanted to kind of dive into that a little bit more.
So when sometimes I use the term taxpayer when a taxpayer passes away, because that's when it gets a lot of people's attention. It's like, oh, tax, what are you talking about? So they've died intestate. That's one of the terms.
Okay.
And just like you mentioned, their estate most likely is frozen.
Right.
And what happens is they have to go through the provincial court system to appoint a representative to basically take care of the estate.
Yeah.
So think of it as, if you got your will done, it's great, but if you didn't and you passed away, then you're basically creating a will but going through the provincial courts. You're taking that extra time. So again, you have to pay lawyer fees, court fees, creditors, executor fees, and just going through this probate process could take months. Like, if you go on the Attorney General website, it says the process could be 3 months.
Wow.
But really, like, there's a lot that's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think this is a top priority, maybe not. So we've seen families, wait months, even years to, get this entire process done. But yeah, nothing can be touched. You can't sell your home, you can't transfer money, nothing like that.
Yeah. And so who needs a will? Because like I said earlier, a lot of times I used to think that it was really just for the wealthy people. And I got my information from, media,
Right.
From what I've seen on TV and things of that sort. Who needs a will? Should everybody have a will, or only if you have something that you want to pass on?
I could say every Canadian should have a will, but that's not very, specific. So again, with the lawyers that I've spoken with, specifically if you are in some type of relationship or separation, if you have children under the age of 18, you do have some type of property, they're ideally a higher priority to get that will.
Yeah.
But again, any Canadian, if you have a bank account, that is your asset. Even if you only have a couple $100 in your bank account, that's still something. That's something that you've worked so hard for.
Right.
And so who is going to take care of this, you know? And so a simple will is very, very important. But again, there's other things that come with it. You should get a will, a power of attorney, and healthcare directive. Those 3 documents are kind of like the entire picture, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're going to talk more about power of attorneys and medical directors and things of that sort in a bit, but people don't even realize what that is. A power of attorney, I had no idea what that was before I started this business of mine, right? And we don't think about who's going to actually take care of everything when we're no longer here, right? And I read my dad's will, which I had to struggle to get from him. And he named my mother as the executor for his estate, which would make sense. But my mom doesn't speak English. My mom is illiterate. My mom has no idea of what that process looks like. And so the thing that I'm trying to get my dad to try to convince him is to add either myself or one of my siblings as the executor. At least, even if we don't know what to do, we can speak the language, which makes a huge difference, right?
You can have co-executor. So even if your mom wanted to be an executor, you could be a co.
Right.
So you can both make decisions together.
Yes.
Because being an executor doesn't mean that they're gonna get everything.
Exactly.
They're the person that's basically taking on this responsibility. And so they do have to be financially responsible.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be available to actually do this role. And if you cannot understand English to a very high level, it's a little bit difficult, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
something
For
different
sure.
to consider.
For sure. So what are some ways that one can create a will? Because I've heard people say that they can put something on a regular piece of paper, sign it, and it's good to go, while other people, require something more sophisticated. What is the proper channels to go about to creating a will?
There's many, so traditionally you can go to a lawyer to
Right.
get your will drafted. Now they have a lot of online platforms where you can do it at the comfort of your home. But again, some of these online platforms are limited. So, if you are a business owner, you have assets over $1 million, or you have property outside of Canada, or some type of situation in your life is a little bit more complicated,
Right.
then you probably want to actually go to a lawyer just so they can kind of see what's going on and make sure that specifically is detailed in the will. But if we're looking at the average Canadian family, just like myself, I'm working, I have a home to live in, and I'm just living my life.
Yeah.
Doing an online will kit is perfectly fine. You just gotta look at the fine print. If you're buying something for $20, that's going to take care of your estate, you got to look at that value. And some of these platforms may not be legal documents when it's printed out. It could just be an outline. So yeah, you could do that. Or I always say it's kind of cheesy, but a will is better than no will at all.
Right.
Even if you write something down on a piece of paper, it's better than having nothing done, right? So just do something, anything, just to kind of get it going.
So even if you have like something on a piece of paper, would you advise somebody to get that notarized through a lawyer, or is it suffice just to have your wishes on a piece of paper with your signature and that's enough?
So in some provinces, getting a will notarized is not mandatory. It's just recommended. And the reason getting it notarized, it means that you're verifying the witnesses. Someone that have seen, okay, you are Harpreet, this is your will, I'm going to sign it. And even if it's a legal will, it's done properly or written down on a piece of paper, it can be contested, right? It can be argued against.
Right.
So notarized or not, it doesn't matter. Someone can always say this information is not correct.
Yeah.
But it's just an extra step. If you want the process to be a little bit quicker, we do recommend getting it notarized.
Yes. And one thing that I love about our partnership with my services and Everest is that Everest really does provide a full on package that takes care of multiple different areas outside of just the will. And I wanted you to kind of touch on the different features that the will kit offers with Everest, because this is something that I urge a lot of my own clients, to get a handle of, because it's so cost effective. It literally covers all areas that you need to cover when, God forbid, if we pass away, whenever that time is. And so I want you to touch on those features.
That's kind of my favorite part. I love to talk about it. So the company that I work for is Everest Funeral Concierge. I know when I say it, you're like, oh my gosh, it's from a funeral home. This is so weird. But no, we take care of final arrangements, and so we operate in North America. And the biggest thing is people say, I need a will, right? I need it. But you only have that will, it's because you are going to pass away. Like when you pass away, it comes into effect. But what about everything else? In Canada, actually anywhere in the world, when we pass, you have to do two things. Either you get buried or cremated, right? Legally, that has to be done. And so who is going to take care of all of that? The funeral arrangement. So that's what Everest does 24/7. We have licensed funeral directors that help the family plan the funeral, but it's all connected. We give you that will kit, we plan the funeral, and we also provide some insurance funds to actually pay for these arrangements. Right. And the beauty about it is we can negotiate costs with different funeral homes, kind of, save the family money if they can, or if we can fund that kind of deal. And not only that, the most important thing is just storing all of that personal information somewhere. So I said all of those great services, but at the end of the day, you have the will, but you can't actually facilitate what that testator wants to do because we don't have any of their bank account information.
Right.
We don't have their accountant's phone number. It's just something simple like that. So we have an online cloud-based data vault where you can store that personal information. So it's a lot of stuff, right? It's a lot, but it just depends on what you're looking for. You can probably, find some type of solution in that package.
And so I know you mentioned that with Everest, you guys offer the funeral planning concierge service. I really want you to touch on how important that is because I tell my clients all the time that people don't have any clue what that process looks like when somebody passes away. And how important it is for us to think about funeral planning because it's an industry that's not regulated in regards to pricing. And I think sometimes people are like, shop around for my funeral. I don't care. It's okay. Or sometimes I hear people say that, they're going to plan, but they'll go directly to a funeral home and plan and get a package where they pre-plan things. But then I've also heard horror stories where you don't get what you expected, or sometimes people are paying for something that they have no idea about. So I want you to kind of emphasize a little bit about the importance of planning, what that process looks like, and what does Everest do that's, that no other company does.
So I have, there's like prearranged services, there's funeral homes, and it's great, whatever fits your need. And so the difference between Everest is that we are not a funeral home and we don't sell any goods or services like that.
Right.
But we have licensed funeral directors that are based in Houston, Texas. I know Houston, Texas is like the most popular state that has the most funeral homes in the world. Very fun
Interesting.
Fact. Okay,
I did not know that.
Yeah, I learned that too. But what makes us unique is that it is 24/7. And we are, there for the family. We don't work for the funeral home or we don't work for Everest to make some type of commission. We don't do any of that.
Yeah.
We just provide that service. And we have like really, really experienced directors that operate around the world. So if someone passes away in Canada and they want to get buried back home, maybe Korea or India, wherever, we have translators. We know different networks within those countries, how to actually transport someone overseas. Just little things like that make a big difference.
Yeah.
And being able to even, make it quicker and save a lot of money. I think that makes us a little bit unique too.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like that here.
Yeah.
Here in Canada and the United States, there's nothing similar to what Everest does.
Yeah. And the plus for myself is in order for people to get to Everest, they'd have to come through a channel like myself. Yes. And so, yes, this is not something that you're just going to find anywhere. You have to come through a special channel like myself to be able to get these services. So, which I feel so, great because I know that's a one addition in terms of services that I can offer to clients. And the thing that I love about our partnership is that it's all about accessibility and making sure that we work for the everyday person, right? For me, I thrive on making sure that we do the right thing for people. And the fact that that's what you guys are doing is what makes you so valuable to the partnership that we have created. And I think it's important for people to know that who I align myself with in terms of my brand, it has to the integrity has to be there. And that's what Everest does, and that's what I appreciate about you guys the most. So I want to say thank you to you for that.
No, I appreciate it. Honestly, we do it because we genuinely care. I personally use these services and I work for them. I say this service is good, but when I actually used it when a family member passed away, I was mind blown. The amount of attention that they give, the amount of just being sincere and knowing when to call, when not to, and just getting things done really fast makes a really, really big difference because when that person is gone, the person that you love, you think you know what you're going to do. You think, I can Google this funeral home, no big deal. No, you're not in that mindset.
Right.
And the saddest thing is that most people don't want to hear about what we do until something actually happens and it's too late. And they call me, it's too late because they don't have Everest, right? And there's nothing that we could really do
at that point. Yeah. It's all about planning before the disaster happens, not when the disaster happens, right? That's not planning no more.
No.
Right? and I think that, like you said, a lot of times, it's either our cultures where we look at funeral planning in a negative way, because so often I hear people say, well, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to speak about it because I'm going to speak it into existence.
Yeah.
Right. And I say to them, well, wealthy people think about these things all the time because they understand what's at stake if they don't. Right. And I think that people really need to start understanding that we need to like destigmatize all the negative conversations around death and planning and insurance and all these other things, because this is why we keep getting stuck in the cycle of generational poverty, right? Because I posted on my Instagram a few weeks ago about the importance of insurance and having insurance. And someone had put in the comments and they said that her grandma always told her that you never know why somebody's crying at a funeral, whether it's because they missed the individual that just passed away or it's because of the financial burdens that they've had to take on. And that was honestly such a, like, I hadn't heard it in that perspective. And I thought it was just a way to kind of nail it on the head, to bring that point across, because it's so true. And the thing is that we don't talk about these things, right? We don't talk about the hardships that we face because either we want to, make it seem like everything is okay, or maybe we're embarrassed, whatever the reason is. But I think it's important that we start to actually have these conversations because it's important.
And it's okay to talk about it.
Right.
I talk about it every single day. I hated talking about death. It actually scared, if I sit down and think about it, I could probably cry or something, it's just
right.
like a weird feeling, but it's okay. Talk about it, get the information and see, what the solution can be.
Yeah.
That's what we're here to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I want to thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
So much great insight. I know that so many people are going to value from the knowledge that you had to share with us. And I think that, it's important for us, like I said, to just kind of normalize conversations around not just death, but like every aspects of finance or planning. And for me, one of the biggest shockers when I first came into the industry was that insurance is the foundation for building wealth. And to me, I was such a non-believer of insurance. I thought it was a fraud.
Really?
Yes,
oh my gosh,
I really did.
I
know. I thought it was a fraud. I used to be one of those people that used to say, I will never get insurance. I'm not paying, because you think of it almost like car insurance, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, first of all, I didn't understand the intricacies of different types of policies. I didn't understand what it means when somebody passes away. But now that as soon as I properly got educated, I was like, oh my God, I cannot leave my family with all this responsibility. And far too often, especially in my communities, I see too many GoFundMes as a source of funeral planning and, insurance.
I see that on my Facebook all the time, and it just, it breaks my heart.
It does.
Even a GoFundMe for $15,000, $20,000, and it's just like, if you had this small little policy, like it could have made a big difference.
Yeah. And I just tell people, like, insurance and funeral planning is like literally a cost of a McDonald's meal. Yeah. Maybe 2 McDonald's meals,
Actually,
depending.
2. I think
2. 2 McDonald's meals, which I think is, workable in most people's budgets. And I think that's another thing too, is that you don't need to have tons and tons of money to be able to do this. We can do this on a very low cost budget, and we can protect everyone. And that's the important thing, right? And it's like, the average cost of a funeral is about what?
It could be 15
to 20,000 if you want to do like a cheap funeral, right?
Yeah.
And that's not even with all the lavish touches. That's just like bare backbones.
Some families have paid $40,000. You can pay $5,000. It all depends, right? If you have the right type of help.
Yeah.
But it can get pretty costly.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And think about it, like, especially in a time like right now during COVID, when people are already struggling financially and, they're supposedly saying these death rates are going up. So imagine having to deal with the situations that you're in right now and then having to take on another responsibility in an unforeseen situation if somebody does pass away. And then, instead of being 10 steps ahead, you're literally going 20 steps behind.
It's that process, especially now with COVID, when someone does pass, it's like, they automatically they have to be removed from wherever they are, and sometimes you don't even know how long something like this is going to take, where they actually are.
Right.
And so having, a concierge service might help and just kind of facilitate that and kind of communicate a lot more than it has been these days.
Right. Thank you so much again, Shailene.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I
Thanks
really,
so much
really
for
appreciate
inviting
you
me.
coming. I know so many people are gonna get so much knowledge from this, and I appreciate you offering your time on a Sunday. You could be doing anything else in the
Sundays,
world.
love Sundays.
But I appreciate being here with me and really answering the questions and sharing more insight in the process of planning for a will.
My pleasure. You can ask me to come back anytime.
Thank you. Thank
so
you.
much.
And there you go, folks. You guys have some more knowledge about will planning. And if you're looking for more information, please click on the link below the video in the description box. You can reach out to me. I help people with their personal finances. I help people get connected with people like Shailene. My job is to elevate people around me. And that's exactly what I'm doing. So please reach out. The knowledge is here. It's accessible. The information is free. So please reach out so I can help you elevate in your personal finances.